If you are allowing yourself to settle for one of four of your relationship non negotiables and wonder why your relationships keep failing, then raise the bar. That was your spirit trying to warn you, but you chose to ignore it, possibly because you were hopeful. You probably really wanted it to work out. We typically don't run into danger unless we think we have a greater probability of coming out unscathed. Proverbs 22, verse 3, King James Version says, "A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished." The exact same verse in the Message translation says, "A prudent person sees trouble coming and ducks. A simpleton walks in blindly and is clobbered." Decision making. The prudent avoid the avoidable. Let's talk about it. The one who is sensitive to the warnings of this spirit will escape avoidable trauma, drama, stress, and headaches. Think of the last negative relationship, the last business deal, the last friendship that made you say, after the fact, "I saw that coming." Or, "I knew they were no good." Or, "I knew something wasn't right about them." Or, "Wow, my gut told me XYZ." That was your spirit trying to warn you, but you chose to ignore it, possibly because you were hopeful. You probably really wanted it to work out. We typically don't run into danger unless we think we have a greater probability of coming out unscathed. Maybe the person or deal truly did seem promising, but deception was lingering all around. A wolf in sheep's clothing. How do you mitigate the risk and decrease your choice error? Well, first, we need to know what type of error you are making. Let's use statistical hypothesis testing to help us out here. The two common errors researchers can make when conducting an experimental study is type 1 error, also known as a false positive, or instead of the word false, we can use the word incorrect, or it's also called errors of commission. An example of a false positive is when an innocent person is found guilty. An example of errors of commission is when you actively choose to date someone based on a few factors. Maybe they met your height requirement, but they turned out to be a poor investment. This occurs when we are negligent and careless. The second type of error is type 2 error, also known as false negative or errors of omission. An example of a false negative is when a guilty person is incorrectly found innocent. An example of an error of omission is when the evidence was right in front of us, but we didn't act accordingly. It's the thing we didn't do, but perhaps should have done that cost us. Some may call it a mistake or oversight. Perhaps you should have avoided person A, but didn't, and it ended up biting you in the tush. Which error maker are you most of the time? Do you focus way too much on the potential of a thing instead of the reality of a thing? Do you see only the negative in a person and are too quick to judge but are missing out on the good they bring? Do you let fear drive you to make impulsive decisions? Do you let fear hold you back from deciding at all? Check out this quote from Wikipedia. It says, "Statistical methods are probabilistic, and it cannot be known for certain whether statistical conclusions are correct. Whenever there is uncertainty, there is the possibility of making an error. Considering this nature of statistics science, All statistical hypothesis tests have a probability of making type 1 and type 2 errors. Since the possibility of making a mistake will often be a factor in every decision we make, wouldn't you like to know how to decrease the chances of making an error? I would. Here are 3 ways that you can as well. Number 1, raise the bar of what you are measuring. For example, I know a real estate investor who only buys property if it meets all 4 of his key performance metrics, KPIs. He does not budge at all. If it meets 3.5 of the 4, then it is a no deal. If you are allowing yourself to settle for 1 of 4 of your relationship non negotiables and wonder why your relationships keep failing, then raise the bar. Number 2, increase your sample size. And in this case, I'd like for your sample size to be the number of trusted eyes that you have on this person or decision in question. Some people make decisions without first seeking wise counsel from their team, family, spiritual advisors, etc. Have you been making decisions in isolation and has it been costing you? I want you to bring on more people to help you make important decisions. 2 sets of eyes are better than 1. And finally, number 3, consistently listen in for guidance and wisdom from Holy Spirit. There is no better advisor and counselor than Holy Spirit Himself. If you aren't sure about a decision, give yourself at least 24 to 72 hours so that you can step back, pray, be still, quiet your mind, and hear from God. If you still don't have an answer after 72 hours, then exercise patience until you have clarity. Hastiness and impulsivity are expensive. Taking these steps will help you build the habits of a prudent person as you drop the gullible or simple habits. Prudent people are wise. They use common sense. They take calculated faith risk. They think through decisions before executing. They also make cautious, careful, now not the same as fearful, cautious, careful judgments. Since avoiding making errors is not guaranteed 100% of the time, you simply have to know your risk tolerance level and ask, is this a risk I am willing to take? Peter Drucker once said, there is the risk you cannot afford to take, and there is the risk you cannot afford not to take. Just make sure you know the difference.